So, after having experienced this problem myself, I decided to figure out a solution and make a video because I couldn't find any answers out there on the web, that were very handy, and I actually didn't find any at all that made any sense. One solution I saw said you can keep trying to put it on or just go buy another one for $14. So we've got a name brand stylus here, which is supposed to be a pretty good item. However, you'll notice that some of the flaws with these styluses, one of them is that the clip that holds it in a pocket or holds it somewhere, sometimes these clips can get broken off because this is, although it looks metal, it's actually made out of plastic, formed plastic, and then it's coated with a chrome type product to make it look metal. But once these break off, which they do almost every time, they leave you with a sharp edge. That's a simple solution for this thing. You really don't need that unless you're the true nerd that's going to have this in his pocket protector. If you're like me, you're probably going to, not need this clip. So just get yourself, you can use a manual nail file and just file that edge off, which I might do later, but I'm actually going to use just a Dremel tool on a low speed for mine with a broad grinding tip, and I'm going to leave the Dremel tool in place and just mill this on the edge of the tip of that Dremel tool and smooth it off until it's smooth with the rest of this thing. The other thing that often happens with these products is that you may have a child that plays with this, or you may be using it a little too hard. You may put it in your pocket and it may get pulled, but what happens is your nib tip, this plastic part, can actually come off. So whenever that happens, you're left trying to put this thing back in here, and if you've ever tried to do this, you know that it is impossible to get back into that gap just by pressing. I've tried freezing it, but because this is soft rubber, it doesn't have a very good, it doesn't really contract very well, because my idea was thinking that I might get these edges to contract enough to fit in here after freezing, and that didn't work. I also lubricated this piece in here thinking that I might be able to use some lubricant to create a suction by pressing down and sucking this back into place, but it does not want to form back into that gap. Now you'll notice that my tip actually came all the way out, and that's by design because I've taken a hairdryer, I've heated this thing up and taken it out for the purposes of this video. So that's actually going to lead us into step one. Step one is we've got to get this central element out of this hollow tube. These tubes can be made of plastic. This one's made of aluminum. And just put a hairdryer up to this for a moment or two. Just I used a couple of minutes, and I just slowly twirled the stylus as I heated it, and then that allowed me, just with my hands, I used my hands, and I got a little bit of a wet paper towel to get some better grip, and it allowed me to twist a little bit, and then the whole element actually comes out in the end. What is a large problem is that once you get the element out, you'll notice this kind of duff look on the outside here is glue. This little chrome ring here is also glued in. Now I tried to just press it out with my fingernails. I tried to push it out with this, but that proved to be impossible. I didn't want to use pliers because that would scuff it up and possibly bend the edges where it was no longer usable. So what I ended up doing was getting a drill. Just use a regular drill with a 1/4-inch bit, and I actually took a medicine bottle. You'll notice here that I drilled a hole into the top of the medicine bottle with a 1/4-inch bit. This hole that's produced once with the standard bit is not actually big enough for this to fit into. So what you can do is, it's a step up. So if you've got a step bit for your drill, that's great. If you don't, use the old tool of just wallowing this around a little bit as you drill until you get a size and shape where the nib tip will fit down into. So what you'll notice is you want a really nice tight fit, so don't overdo it. Take your time getting this to where it's a nice snug fit. Now the beautiful part of this stylus is that it actually comes with the appropriate size tip for us to press the center of this with. Get a nice tight grip on this thing and slowly just put pressure on this. The glue that holds this together is not very strong. That will allow you to separate this beauty ring, this nice little pretty polished piece, from the actual functioning part of the stylus. This is what makes the screen work. The rubber simply protects the screen from being scratched by this little guy here. So, what we're going to do now that we've got all of this apart, we're going to take our rubber tip and voila, the light bulb she come on, and the magic is done. Now we've got our nib tip back on there, and look at how easy that was. Now we're going to start putting this back together, and you'll find that in the end this is actually going to be a stronger product than what you started out with. In fact, if you buy one of these new, you might even choose to do this proactively so that you don't have to do it later. Keep this little tool around, a nice medicine bottle with the hole that's the appropriate size. If you use these things a lot, this is going to be an invaluable tool for you. And basically all you're going to do at this point is we're going to place this guy back in here, not deeply, just enough to hold it in place. And you'll notice we'll be able to take our little beauty ring, and the beauty ring, you'll notice it's beveled right here at the top. That lets you know that this needs to go to the top of the stylus where the nib will be, because that bevel is the identifier. It's going to make it look pretty and function well. And the cool thing is that this hollow tube that you now have will actually work perfectly over the nib tip to press the bevel down and back into place. And now you are set with a tip that is going to work. Now here's what I would suggest. Let's push this out from the back. It pops right out, just a little finger pressure. We take our little nib tip here, and again we're going to take the hollow point of our tube, put that right there, and we'll just lightly tamp so that we know that we've got a good seal on that. Now, some of you might want to add a little bit of just a tacky glue. I wouldn't suggest necessarily using super glue because you never know when you might have to take this apart again. And super glues are very brittle and they hold so strongly that it might cause problems if you ever have to do another repair. But the cool thing is that this rubber tip, once it's back on there, is not nearly as apt to pull out because the compression that's put on there is much better than the first time that it was made from the manufacturer. I don't know why that is. My assumption is that it might be a manufacturing flaw, or it might be a flaw by design, so that you might have to buy more of these. Either way, the case is that you can fix this yourself, put it all back together. If you prefer, again, use a little bit of glue to hold it all together. But now you'll notice that the style is put back together, tip on, and everything functions as it should. And we can, use our stylus to do things that we would normally do on our phone, and we're good to go.